My experience with breast cancer is actually through my deceased grandmother, who I've actually never met. Her name's Beverly. My immediate reaction to that is like, oh, my girlfriend has cancer. Oh, she's going to die.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to season 2. This is Shauna.
And this is Rosalina. And we're your hosts for Too Young for This Shit podcast. This podcast is not just about boobs, but a journey with cancer. We are young millennials, open about giving you a raw and unfiltered look into our lives. We are in no way medical professionals, nor are we offering medical advice. Any medical references are cited directly from public websites or from our personal diagnosis. Some topics and stories may be triggering to those who are fighting, have fought, or have loved someone with cancer. Hi, everyone. It's Rosalina.
Hi, guys.
I am so excited for this episode. I have here Mr. Brian Kaplan, my partner on the podium today. And we have him on here so we can get into our relationship, get into his role as a caretaker, and talk about his feelings, my feelings, and emotions throughout my cancer journey. So thank you, Brian, for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
We're excited to have you, Brian.
Yeah.
This is exciting. My whole life has been leading up to this moment.
Brian has been listening to some of our episodes in season 1. So thank you for being a fan.
Yeah, number one fan.
Before we dive into the deeper questions, I just want the listener to get to know you. So what do you want the listeners to know?
Yeah, so I do a lot of stuff in my free time. I'm a multifaceted kind of guy. I do a lot of crazy stuff, but recently I'm starting my semi-professional karting career.
Oh, yes, that's true.
Yeah, I'm going. There's this like racetrack near where we live. It's like an hour away, and you can go and like rent go-karts, and it's like pretty pro style stuff. They go like 40 miles an hour or something. They're like super fast. It's insane.
Right, and you have a competition coming up in June.
I do. So I signed up for like a race. They're going to do like qualifying heats, and it's like I'm going to be a Formula One driver one day.
That's amazing.
Yeah, cool? It's so cool. Yeah,
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's a big new thing for me, I think.
Yeah, it's so funny because Brian was like, "You want to come do this with me?" And I was like, I don't know. I don't know about this.
You could do it.
I think you've had enough life or death experiences in the last year. I'm not trying to be in hospitals any more than we already have.
Yeah, I agree. What else, Brian, about yourself?
I play guitar in a metal band that we founded in Seattle. It's pretty cool. We're coming out probably with an album sometime later this year. So keep you posted on that. So
Brian's first single that he co-wrote, he actually sang.
I did. Yeah.
And it sounded really good, actually. So
I did the clean vocals.
So you're the guitar player in this band? And then I guess
so we have two guitar players. I do the lead vocal, like lead clean vocals, and then my other buddy Jay, he plays more of the lead guitar, and he does the like screaming vocal.
It's like insane.
He's crazy. He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's super good. Yeah. I'm like, wow, Jay can make that like noise or like that sound. Yeah.
So what does your band sound like?
It's progressive metal.
Progressive metal. Like similar to like what? Like I don't listen to metal, but like Metallica?
Yeah, I mean Metallica is on the list of influences. I know that's Jay's favorite band, so he follows them like gospel.
Aren't you guys a little similar to Ozzy Osbourne and his band?
There's some influence there.
Your band used to be an instrumental
it was
metal band.
Yeah, it was.
And so if you guys ever heard of Russian Circles, they're pretty similar to that.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Rosalina, did you listen to metal before meeting Brian?
My ex-boyfriend was also into metal, so that's why I kind of have that knowledge.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Last thing that you should talk about, Brian, because you have so many interests, is your gigs.
Oh yeah, so I'm a voice actor now.
Really? For what?
I started a Fiverr, and I do like voiceovers and voice acting, and it's pretty crazy.
For like commercials or just like anything?
Yeah.
Okay, but the coolest part though is you did a voice act for a game.
Yeah, we did a small game. I haven't like seen anything from the game yet, but it's from a small Polish like indie studio. It's some kind of like,
I mean, there's a ton of money in that.
I don't know. I did like a bunch of voices for them. It was pretty fun.
Yeah.
That is fun. I mean, there's, like I said, a ton of money in that. I have a friend that does voiceover work and she just kills it.
Maybe you should get some tips from her.
Maybe you should talk to your friend.
Yeah. I'll connect you. She's great. Yeah, she's great. And then I know somebody else who was like the woman on the Barnes and Noble commercials.
No freaking way!
Like around Christmas time.
Oh,
like
wow.
she's that. Yeah, I met her and she was a friend of my old employer and she like did it in the kitchen and I was
oh
like,
my god,
whoa.
that's so cool.
Yeah, it was kind of wild to like hear it in real life because normally you don't see a face to the voice, so it was really cool.
That's so funny.
That's like a great kind of side gig. I mean, it seems like you have like a ton of stuff going on, but that's pretty fun.
So the list goes on.
Thank you for giving that intro, Brian. Now let's get into our relationship. So just give the listeners a brief overview about how we met, how long we've been together, any just like major events. Just give us like a short timeline.
So we met like 3 years ago. It was 3 years in January, right?
So I would say we met like
that's true
3.5.
That's true. Yeah, 3.5.
Yeah,
in Seattle. I think I'd only lived in Seattle before we met, like two months or something. Like I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed like in Seattle, and Rosie over here was like, you know, she knew the lay of the land pretty well. Mm-hmm. So she was showing me all these cool things and stuff.
Where are you originally from?
Oh, I'm from Virginia originally. I moved to Seattle in, I guess that was, summer 2018. Mm-hmm. We met on a dating app and we just hit it off. And it was good times. We had a lot of fun times in Seattle when we were first getting to know each other.
Mm-hmm. We had some like wild nights.
Yeah, we did.
Just like going to bars.
Rosie's crazy. I convinced her to come with me to Vancouver for like a weekend getaway, like after our second date or something.
Yeah, it was actually pretty insane.
And you went?
Yeah, so I went.
Have you ever seen Dateline?
Yes, I've seen Dateline. I've seen that show. Yes,
I trusted my dumbass.
He just had like good intentions. I don't know, and I don't know.
You had good energy.
Yeah, I just felt that. Yeah, I just trusted him, which is not the case for me with everyone. I don't trust people like that.
Yeah, Rosie is usually pretty sus.
With everything.
So
she's from the tri-state area. I think it's in our blood.
I know, seriously. Yeah. Well, it's definitely in my Latin blood because my mom always pounded like, "Don't trust people. You can't trust anyone," type of thing. So
you went on this weekend trip, and then did you guys just like knew that it was kind of solidified from there? Like you guys were together?
No, we didn't. I think. I'm sure we were much closer after that, but we didn't actually start dating like officially until January. And that was back in October. So that was like October 2018. And then we didn't like actually start dating until January 2019. I probably waited too long because I like had this major freak out over New Year's because I sent her this like heartfelt like Happy New Year's text, and I never got I didn't get a response. She like ghosted me. I never got she claims text. She didn't get the text message. I literally showed you my phone, but I never got the text message. I don't know what happened. I never got it. I think what probably happened is that everyone sends that text like at the same time. So it's entirely possible that it could just get lost in the...
Oh, you mean like on New Year's, at midnight?
The traffic volume is like super high. So, I mean, usually that kind of thing doesn't happen, but I guess it happened.
I don't know. This sounds like a rom-com.
She's going to hold this one to her grave, and on her deathbed, she's going to be like, I got the text.
That's funny.
That's going to be our last dying confession. That's really funny.
How about currently? How did we get to this point?
Yeah, so we moved here in April last year.
Move where? Los Angeles?
To LA, yeah. Sorry.
Whose idea was it?
I guess it was probably mine. Well, Rosie wanted to go to San Diego. And then I was like, I can't find a good job there. The job market in San Diego is not really great. As far as like big industry, felt like we both were talking about moving. It was like I don't think we were talking about moving together really until we were like both actually decided to move. Because I don't think we wanted to like coerce the other person to move with us. Mm-hmm. It was like yeah, I think I need to leave. And then it was like I think I need to leave too.
Yeah, so I hit my 5-year mark and I told myself, I would ask this question of like, do I want to stay in Seattle or do I want to venture out somewhere else? And I decided that I wanted to see what else was out there. So I think it was like two different reasons. Like he didn't like Seattle, so he just wanted to leave, where I was like, where can I see myself?
Yeah, you were just ready for the next adventure.
Yeah. Thanks for that intro, Brian.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
I practiced it for a long time.
I learned a lot.
I was like in the mirror for like the past 2 weeks, like talking through my intro.
Yeah, he wasn't, but
were you sweating this interview so hard?
Yeah, I couldn't sleep last night.
That might be true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's kind of, I guess, dive into some of the questions about Rosalina's diagnosis. Brian, what were your initial thoughts when Rosalina got diagnosed with breast cancer?
I mean, I was gutted, like overwhelmed. Mm. Yeah, it was rough. I mean, it was definitely like a why me, why this, why us. Like one of the big things I think was because when she got diagnosed, we were like already planning to move to LA. So I was like, all right, well, we're not going to LA now, so we're going to be stuck here for even longer. That obviously didn't turn out to be the case, which is awesome. I think it was ended up being a lot easier for probably both of us that we were here in LA as opposed to in Seattle. In general, pretty.
Just to add more color into like our move to Los Angeles, I think that was very good for us. Like what Brian said, a fresh new start, except for, I still had to like face the cancer thing. But in terms of just like being in the sun, I think changed our mood pretty tremendously. So sure. I think that also like helped with dealing with all this. Seattle could be really gray most of the time. Only the summertime is really when you get the sun. So I got diagnosed last February. So it's like, I just felt like I shouldn't be in Seattle anymore. I got this cancer diagnosis and I can't deal with this here in Seattle. I need to be somewhere else. So I think it was a good choice for us to move to Los Angeles.
Yeah. You sound like you had like a dark cloud around you, like in every sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I felt. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. After you got diagnosed, I pretty much like didn't like leave your apartment, basically. I like came over and then I don't think I like left you for very much time, like over the next couple of weeks. Like I was like just boarded up like in your apartment.
Yeah, so I lived in a studio apartment and Brian would just be there all the time. It was a really cramped space to have two people and plus Louis.
Well, did you feel like you just didn't want to leave her because she was like distraught, or you just felt like, I just want to be there for her, like at any moment that she needs me?
Yeah. So, I mean, I basically knew that if she was left too long by herself, like she would just lose it uncontrollably, like sobbing, like just so emotional. So I felt like I needed to be there to help control that, because initially it was all just like trying to figure everything out. What was going on? What's the deal? What needs to happen? Like, how bad is it really?
The like unknown is the worst part, especially in the beginning of being diagnosed.
Yeah. And obviously, like, I was trying to be as involved as possible from like an intellectual perspective to understand and try to help like make the most rational decision as possible. So I felt like I needed to almost be on the phone, like with these doctors when they would call. So I was like not trying to not be there.
Right. Did you feel like you had to regulate your emotions around Rosalina? Did you hold back like your feelings? Did you not show that you were upset? Do you feel like you had to kind of, keep it together for the both of you? Or did you share any of your fears or concerns, or like show how upset you were?
I mean, I think I tried to hide it, but it didn't work for very long. Like there were some moments where I broke down and I was like, I'm not supposed to be the one that's like freaking out. I'm supposed to be able to hold it together for you. And you were like, it's okay. I'm here for you right now.
I didn't want to see him that way. So I tried to comfort him as much as possible, even though obviously like I was the person who had cancer, but it's just a natural thing for me is to be there for other people. So I just, at that moment, I think he needed me to be there for him and hug him and, all those things.
So, but that was, really right in the beginning. Like, I think that was like the first day that had happened. The most emotional time for me was definitely up until the fact that like, we basically had this understanding that she wasn't going to like immediately die. That was like the big thing for me. Like, because my experience with breast cancer is actually through my deceased grandmother, who's actually my namesake, who I've actually never met. Her name's Beverly, Grandma Bev. My immediate reaction to that is like, oh, my girlfriend has cancer. Oh, she's going to die. Like that was
that's an immediate death sentence.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Which is obviously, fortunately, not the case. And I think as soon as I wrapped my head around the fact that she was not immediately going to die, and there's a method and steps that we can take to get it taken care of and just like move on as much as possible, I think I was a lot less emotional after that happened.
The first time I heard that I had cancer, I thought I was going to die. The other reaction I had was like, fuck, I don't want to do this to people in my life. Like, I don't want to do that to Brian, or I don't want to do that to my brothers, my parents. I don't want to be the one who dies, I didn't want that like hardship to happen where like Brian over here, like his fucking girlfriend died and he's only like 28 years old. That's so sad. And I didn't want that to happen. Same thing with like my family too. My mom would rather get the cancer than me. It was just so much emotions. And that was the last thing that I wanted, was for them to have to deal with someone who actually like died from cancer.
You guys are only like a year into your relationship at this point. Basically the start of your relationship. This is a little over
like
a year.
Almost 2 years.
Yeah, it was 2 years.
You got to realize like we were together for all of COVID, right? So your diagnosis was like late COVID, right?
Yeah, like 2021.
A year after COVID.
We had been in COVID for like a hot minute.
Right.
So, and we were with each other all the time. It didn't feel like it was still a young relationship. Like we were in it.
Right.
During the pandemic, I mean, we would just hang out with each other like all the freaking time. We lived in separate apartments, but I would always go to his apartment or he would always go to mine, and we would always play like Mario Kart or watch like cartoons or movies.
We were just chilling a lot.
Yeah. So I felt like due to that, like we got super close.
COVID kind of aged every relationship, probably 10, 15 years. I mean, Matt and I at that point were already together like 7-ish, and then living together and being together 24/7 was just, I mean, I feel like we've been together for 25 years.
Right.
It's been 84 years.
How do you guys do it? What's the secret?
Yeah, what's the secret, Sean?
I don't know. There's 2 bedrooms. That's the only way. That was the only way that we could do it at that point.
When we moved to Los Angeles, like I think it was important for us to have space too. You know, we can't live in a 1-bedroom apartment.
No.
That would be like super insane and crazy.
Yeah, that would not work.
So I definitely agree with you that like having 2 bedrooms, you know, one for playtime maybe or office time, like whatever it is, like it's super necessary.
Yeah. Just like being able to go into separate rooms when, you know, somebody's like not sleeping well, or just, you know, you guys are driving each other absolutely insane and need like a little space.
Absolutely.
I don't think that that's a bad, no,
that's not a bad thing. Yes.
It's the best thing we did. Best decision. So Brian, you said, you know, the only real experience you've ever had with like cancer, breast cancer, was your grandmother that you never met. So did you like go straight to researching about breast cancer and treatments and hospitals, or did you just kind of learn everything from Rosalina's doctors? There
was definitely an active investigation and like research kind of phase that I had. A lot of that information did come from the doctors. The first oncologist that you talked to, I think surgical oncologist, right? Is that
Dr. Perrin?
Yeah. So that was like still peak COVID. So I wasn't actually able to go into the office with her for that visit, but I was on the phone, and I just remember asking, you know, a lot of questions. And I fortunately like come from a family that is no stranger to like medical terms and like medicine in general.
Your father.
Yeah.
Works.
Well, so my dad like studied, I think, biomed for a time. I don't actually remember the specifics of that, but my dad has a lot of experience in medicine, like from an educational perspective. So like growing up, I was never a stranger to illnesses or medical terms or that kind of stuff. Like we were definitely super open about talking about that kind of stuff.
And that's so strange because I come from a completely different background.
Yeah, which I found so intriguing. Like I probably knew more about breast cancer than Rosie did.
Yep. It's true.
Really?
At the time of diagnosis, yeah. So yeah, there was definitely quite a lot of research and investigation. Your family member, I don't remember the relation, Papo, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Papo, who is actually a doctor, right. And he studied in the Dominican Republic and then came to Florida to get his license.
I need to meet that man because he's like
he's a great man.
Yeah, like he helped us out so much. I think he was like the one thing that calmed everything down.
Right, it's true. So this is my cousin Papo. When I've spoken to Papo, who has education in just medicine overall, but he actually knows a lot about cancer.
Yeah, I mean, we just, you know, bombarded him with questions. And he was really careful to like make us understand that the information that we had been given was all like relatively good information.
For example, like he asked me about my pathology report. He went through that with me. So, you know, my first visit with Dr. Perrin, all the information that she told me like went through one ear out the other.
Oh, yeah,
so with my cousin, yeah, definitely. So with my cousin Papo, like it was really good for him to break it down for me. what does it mean to be ERPR positive? What is Ki-67? Is there any lymph nodes involved? He was like telling me all these things and like asking me questions, and it was really good information. And I feel like for him to explain it to me that way, I was able to digest it way better than my doctor visit with Dr. Perrin. But I think that was also because for me, at least, like I need to hear the information more than once to actually like understand. He was super helpful in that sense.
That's probably where the research and information stuff, at least on my side, kind of ended. It got to a point where I could tell Rosalina was like comfortable and understood well, like what was happening, what she needed to do, how she should actually go about like controlling the narrative in a doctor visit. Because I think that's really important. Like a lot of times, you go in and you talk to a doctor and they try to control the narrative for you, which I think is really bad, because then you just get overwhelmed. You got to kind of advocate for yourself and like try to actually take the time to ask the questions.
You need to have like a mission, right? Like when I got comfortable with information that was given to me, I made it my mission to go to the doctor appointment and control the conversation as much as I possibly could, which was super helpful, because the thing is like, it is scary when you go to the doctor's office and then they tell you all this information and you just feel hopeless and vulnerable and you don't even know like what to ask. But if you've taken the time to understand the information, go back home, maybe talk it out with your partner, which I did with Brian. Like we went over it like so many times. And then also talking to my cousin Papo, like all of that made me become like a stronger person and made me want to go into my oncologist's office and just like start bombarding them with all these questions.
Yeah, just like grill them.
I think once the initial shock of it wears off, and not saying that it ever like fully wears off, but like once you're able to sit there and be like, okay, shit, this is like my reality. This is my life. Like now what do we do about it? Then I think obviously that makes it easier to kind of process information and ask those questions. And then having your partner be able to like be there to ask the questions that you miss, because I don't know, we've talked about this on season 1, but like I always found myself like when there was something that I absolutely did not want to hear, like when the mention of chemo was brought up, like instant blackout. So it was like, I always felt like it was really great to have, Matt there to finish asking the questions that I came in to ask. Like, Brian, did you do that a lot? I mean, I know you weren't in the office with Rosalina, but
like on the phone.
You were on the phone, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, being on the phone for those initial conversations was tough, but I think it was definitely a place for me to ask questions and get all the information that I could get. I mean, I was taking notes. Like, if I looked through my phone, I could probably find the notes even still.
Brian, what was like the hardest parts for you watching like Rosalina go through surgery, recovery, treatment? Like what was like one of the hardest moments of the entire, like, apart from getting diagnosed?
So there was a bunch of, well, not a bunch of times, but there was like a couple distinct moments through the phase that happens after diagnosis where they, try to get you information about your pathology or whatever, and, what the potential outcomes are going to be from your, like, even from a surgical perspective. Because I remember the initial diagnosis was like a lot less severe than what the actual diagnosis was. We like literally went out and freaking celebrated because you were like supposed to just get a lumpectomy. And then we like found out that was like not the case. Like you got like a random ass call like later.
Friday night.
Was it the same day we went out? Or
no.
was it?
So we went out Wednesday and I got the call. Dr. Perrin called me on Wednesday saying that my MRI did not show any signs that any lymph nodes were involved. there were no cancer in the lymph nodes. And then we celebrated Wednesday. And then Friday night, I got an unexpected call from Dr. Perrin. And that's when she told me that they reread the MRI report.
Like they had somebody else look at it.
Yeah.
And then they called us again and they were like, yeah, there's all this other stuff. And like, you know, we can't do the initial plan. And like, that was really tough. That was really hard.
It was super hard and I couldn't be on the phone. Like that was the moment where I was like, here, Brian, like I can't fucking do this. And then Dr. Perrin was like, where's Rosalina? And like, Brian's like, she's in the other room. She can't like deal with this information.
At that time, I was probably like pretty in control of my own emotions. So it was really just like play the caregiver part.
Getting her through.
Just like, just like hard. Really hard to watch.
Yeah.
As far as like the surgery stuff goes, I didn't really feel like I was a super stranger to that. I mean, like I wasn't super grossed out or anything from her post-surgery stuff. There weren't really a lot of super hard moments for us, or at least for me. Like there weren't really any super hard moments during that surgery. I think primarily because your family was around for that, which was really helpful. There were definitely some moments like during chemo and stuff where you started, you know, the hair started falling out, and that was like really hard for me to watch, especially because I had this, and I think we'll get into it, but I had a little bit of a misunderstanding with the cold capping. I mean, there were some moments in chemo, you know, in the middle towards the end where I could tell like she was deteriorating a little bit, but I don't know. I don't really have any super, other than the things I mentioned, I don't think there's any other super hard moments. At least for me, you know.
Let's talk chemo for a second, because was Rosalina going through treatment what you expected it to be? You know, I think in movies, like there's always like somebody who has cancer and like they're going through treatment and they're just bald and they're, you know, puking and like frail. And
the picture that, you know, you always see in your head is like the person in the medical gown, like barefoot, you know, walking through the halls of the hospital with the drip
and like the hollow eyes
and like no hair and the hollow eyes and like all that stuff. So yeah, that was definitely the expectation. I didn't have that much of a picture in my head like that in the moments leading up to the chemo, because I think her doctor had given us a pretty good understanding of what you were going to get and what was going to happen. I think in reality, it probably wasn't as bad as I envisioned it to be.
Right. Now, let's talk about cold capping again, because you said you, I guess, had some sort of misunderstanding on what cold capping not was, but the results would be? Once
I could tell Rosie could advocate for herself in this setting of speaking with a doctor, I took a step back. Like I wasn't being as involved with the decision making. I wasn't like asking the questions because I knew that Rosie was kind of on top of it. Like from what I heard from her, the cold capping was like, oh yeah, you're not going to lose. You're not going to lose
from the oncologist.
No,
or from me.
I think from you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think most of the information I got about the cold capping was actually from you. I thought that she wasn't really going to lose any hair. You weren't be able to notice, you know, blah, 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 which was like not even close to the case. Like you still lost so much hair. You were obviously able to, you know, not go fully bald, which was awesome. And I think that's a huge win, but it was a lot worse than I expected.
Did you think it created a lot more anxiety for Rosalina and for you too, because you were kind of caught off guard, it seems like.
Yeah, of course. When her hair started falling out, I hadn't seen her get that freaked out in kind of a while, actually.
Yeah.
Like I felt like she was pretty she was like pretty strong and pretty in control of her emotions.
You saw how she got very upset, like when it was falling out of her head. Like, do you think it was worth it in the end?
I do think it was worth it. Yeah.
It's just kind of hard to see it going through it at the time, right? Like, how is this worth it if you're losing this much?
I do think it was worth it. Like, she figured out a way how to do her hair where you couldn't really tell. It looked like it was normal. You can't really do that if you go completely bald, unless you get a wig or I don't know. I don't know how people. I think most people they just take it and they just do it and they accept it and they own it. I don't know if I'm sure that like if Rosie had to go full bald, she would have had to own it. Like you kind of have to, I think. Otherwise you're just in a pity party, which is not, where you want to be. But I do think it gave her like the one thing to lean on was like, oh, I still have some hair. I do think it was worth it from like that psychological perspective, but also feeling like she didn't have to reinvent herself like socially.
Yeah. I didn't want to make friends during the time that, I was going through this hair loss because I didn't really feel like myself. I was pretty self-conscious around Brian as well because Brian met me when I had a full head of hair. And the time when I started losing my hair, I thought Brian didn't think I was pretty enough. There were some times where I was like super depressed most of the time during chemotherapy and even like after. And there was a moment that I literally said to you, it's like, I don't think I'm pretty. And then you responded, I still think you're beautiful. And so that that moment for me was like really important because after he said that, I didn't feel self-conscious anymore around him.
Yeah.
That was super important for me to hear, even though like I still felt ugly. But at least he didn't think I was ugly. So that was like important for me to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I get, not wanting to make friends like while you're in the middle of treatment. You don't know how genuine people are going to be. And you don't know how like, are you going to be pitied because you're the girl that has cancer? And like, it's kind of a hard way to start off friendship. Yes. So I could see that being like super difficult. And I mean, the hair part was the worst, like one of the worst parts, actually. Thinking you are going to be able to save it and like have a sense of normalcy, and then just seeing come out in clumps is just like heart-wrenching.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Brian could tell you firsthand how difficult that was. Sure.
It was crazy. You were like putting it in bags and stuff. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? Just like throw it away.
I know. Yeah. Cause I was,
I remember you wanted to see how much you were losing and like how fast it was happening.
Right.
Yeah. It was good that I did that because I think it was like day 18. Like that's when I started losing a lot of hair. I'm like, holy fucking shit. Like from day 4 to like day 18, like there was just a tremendous difference between how much I was losing hair in the beginning versus how much I lost hair after day 18. It was crazy.
Right. Brian, like you're watching Rosalina now, like kind of deteriorate during chemotherapy and you're watching her hair fall out. Like Rosalina's family is across the country and like you are like the primary caregiver to Rosalina at this time. Like how did that affect like your day to day?
I had to, put her first, obviously. I mean, I think realistically day to day, she really didn't need like all that much help. She was definitely trying her hardest to maintain a sense of normalcy as much as possible. She was definitely in control of her day to day, like as far as, meals go and, keeping herself alive. I mean, helping out with Louis, I think was definitely a big piece of that, like making sure that he was, hooked up in the morning and goes out for a walk. I definitely was kind of ready when, or tried to be available, like for whenever, something might happen. But yeah, I mean, realistically, I was just trying to balance the I'm there for you caregiver thing while also not trying to overdo it, because I didn't want to let her get comfortable and then like fall into this
being too dependent.
Yeah. But it wasn't just for me. Like I knew that you didn't want that either.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So I was kind of trying to balance that. And then there was one moment where like it fell apart. It was clear that I like wasn't doing enough, because Rosie's also like not going to tell me like I'm not doing enough or like I need to do more. She's going to kind of hold out on that and be a little stubborn and think that she can handle it and do it. You know, there was like a moment where I think you like threw your back out or something.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Back out.
Yeah, I remember that.
You threw your back out, like doing. I don't even know what it was.
I literally was like so angry that day.
Yeah, you were super pissed. You were mad as hell at me because you were like, you thought I wasn't there for you. I wasn't doing enough or whatever. We just had like a conversation, and I was like, "Yo, I'm here for you. Like, I'll do whatever you need."
Aww.
Like. And then I don't think I had actually explained to her that I was trying to hold back.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had that conversation too, which like made sense.
Right.
Yeah. Cause it's honestly true. I mean, I'm pretty much an independent person, and that's how I've always been. It was nice to hear from Brian how like he didn't want to overstep that. I appreciated that, because it's honestly the truth. Like I don't want people to take over my life. Like I want to be able to do that myself.
So now that like you've experienced obviously being a caregiver, like is there any advice that you'd give to like other caregivers or like other partners that are like in the same position as you, kind of helping navigate your partner through breast cancer, like a breast cancer diagnosis, treatment, surgery, everything?
Yeah, I think you just need to be in tune with your partner. Like you just have to understand, try to, I guess, like empathize as much as possible. But I think at the end of the day, what somebody who's going through something like that probably wants, and obviously it's just my perception through Rosie, but I think that person wants to maintain a sense of normalcy as much as possible and feel like they're still the same person that they were, or will be still be the same person after it's all over, even during. Because I know that was a big thing for Rosie. She didn't want it to like change her or like make her a different person.
From my perspective, I don't think one person should take all of the weight. You know, I think for someone to go through this like really horrible cancer journey, you need as many people to help. You know, having my family be there, like my mom and my dad flew over, you know, to be here for me for my first infusion. And that was super helpful because that took pressure off of Brian to do any of the work. Like my mom took over, which was really, really nice. And then obviously like George and Abby, like for my surgery, they cooked for us. George was like there with me like 24/7, and Abby as well. And they kept me company where like Brian could do other things that he's been wanting to do. And so with my last chemo infusion, both my brothers, George and Roberto, and then Abby, like they came, and, you know, you went on your trip with your boys in DC. And like, that was what I wanted. I didn't want Brian's life to be surrounded by mine, like 24/7. I was like, go have your trip, please. You need to live your life as well. So it was really nice that he was able to do that. Like he was hesitant at first, right? Like he was like, are you sure? Are you sure? Yeah. I was like, yes, my brothers and my sister-in-law would be here with me. I need you to do this for yourself. I definitely didn't want Brian to lose himself.
Yeah. The best advice is just like, try to stay balanced, like as much as possible, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have your band, you know, now you're doing voiceover work. Like, did you find that keeping like, you know, making sure you made it to band practices and things like that, like that was super it's super important for other caregivers to like have that one thing that kind of separates from like what is going on at home and cancer and things like that. Like it's nice to have that one outlet.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, that was like probably just playing video games. Like that's the outlet usually. We weren't doing that much band stuff, especially like the chemo period. Yeah, I don't know. What was I like doing I was like probably just playing games in my free time.
Yeah, you're playing a lot of video games for sure.
Yeah.
Now Brian does way more than what he did during chemo.
It was also COVID.
Radiation.
So it's like, what the hell is I?
Yeah, that's true. It was like,
right.
You couldn't really do much except for like go outside because like LA was super strict.
Yeah, they were.
Do you feel like Rosalina is a different person now, like post cancer?
I do, but all in the best ways.
Like how so?
She's definitely more in tune with her health. She is more intelligent about how your like body works, like from a biological kind of perspective. I think she is just like stronger, more confident, like all those things. Like she's still her crazy, weird, goofy self. I think she's the one thing that is maybe a little different is she's toned down the like careless in the wind, like kind of thing. But I think that's like, she still has that, carelessness. And so carelessness is the wrong word. It's like, I'm struggling to find the term, but it's
carefree.
Yeah.
Like,
Carefree, young, like, just throwing yourself at life and having no fear kind of thing. She still has that, definitely, but I think it's toned down a little bit.
I think also, I would add like in Seattle, I like every weekend I always wanted to go out.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to get at was that like, yeah, I mean, we were like, even the both of us, we were like pretty crazy back then. But I don't think that's just I don't think that's just the cancer thing. That's also like being freaking locked in for 2 years. Like that ages you.
Yeah, that's true.
Like I feel like COVID launched me into my like early mid 30s. I think Rosie is different, but all in good ways.
That's really nice.
So sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice. I always say, I'm like, I make Matt out to be like an angel on this podcast.
Yeah.
And like, you are neck and neck right now, the two of you, after this interview. I think a cancer diagnosis is like not, it's hard on the person obviously being diagnosed, but it's also hard for partners and family members and things like that. Were there like happy moments between the two of you?
Yeah. I mean, the time that we celebrated for the lumpectomy. Like that was that, like, it was a good night. We had a lot of fun. We were like I think we went to a restaurant that we hadn't been to in a while, and they like had a new location, and we were like excited about it. And the waiter was like really cool. Like he hooked us up with some stuff, and we were like talking to him and stuff.
You told the waiter like we got some good news.
We told him, we were like, yo, like we had a rough week. We got some really good news today, and we were just like out here to celebrate. And like I think we like thanked him. I was like, yo, thank you for making this a fun dinner or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a good moment. I mean, obviously, like when she finished chemo, that was big. I'm sure we had like tons of day-to-day like happy moments.
Well, Brian, it was like so nice to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Your answers were so kind.
It's super important to get the perspective of a caregiver. I'm super grateful that you stuck by my side. Thank you all for listening and supporting our podcast. Sharing our stories with you has been incredibly healing for both of us, and we hope it helps other women in their journeys through breast cancer.
Ladies, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and fellow breasties. Help us reach more women by subscribing and rating us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and now on YouTube. You can follow us on Instagram at TYFTS Podcast and email us at tyftspodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from you guys, so shoot us a message. We will link any resources from the episode in our show notes.